And welcome back. Vice President Kamala Harris getting last-minute campaigning in before heading to Chicago for the Democratic National Convention. Harris and running mate Tim Walz went on a multi-city bus tour through the swing state of Pennsylvania. The candidates called supporters and spoke at a campaign office outside of Pittsburgh. Harris landed in Chicago around 7 tonight. And at tomorrow's Democratic National Convention, Vice President Harris and her running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, will take to the stage to continue their campaign for the White House. Joining us now to talk about what we can expect to see at this convention is UC Berkeley political science professor Steve Fish. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We have so much to get into. I want to ask you first, how different would this convention have been if President Biden was still in the running?
Well, Sarah, it would be completely different. The party was, even before the debate where Biden was perceived as having blown it, the Democratic Party wasn't that excited about President Biden. In many ways, he's been quite successful, but as a politician and as a campaigner, he really was not the best thing the party's got. But now with Vice President Harris heading the ticket and having chosen a very good candidate to run with her and Governor Walz of Minnesota, there's just an awful lot of excitement in the party. This is going to be a real celebration. And I think it would have been much more subdued if Biden were the candidate.
And, it's very rare to have a party switch up for a presidential candidate, especially at this point in the game. But as you said, it seems like there's some excitement in the party. I did attend one of the campaign fundraisers here in San Francisco. People walked out saying they've never been more proud to be American. They were so excited. What do you think we'll see from other delegates at the convention? Can you hear us, Steve?
I'm sorry, Sarah, I missed part of what you said.
Oh, it's okay. Technology is tough. I was basically saying I heard a lot of excitement from the Democratic Party when I attended a fundraiser here. I was covering it for Cron 4, and I was saying, what can we expect to hear from delegates who will be there? That excitement, what can we expect?
A great deal of excitement and a great deal of unity. Vice President Harris really won this by acclamation. There was this feeling after she had this extremely strong start that she was going to be our person. And so I think you're going to see tremendous unity at this convention. But it's not going to be the kind of unity you had with former President Trump at the Republican convention, where there's a kind of unity around an old candidate who everybody knows his liabilities, combined at the Republican convention with no effort to reach out to swing voters or to broaden the base. I think this is going to be a unified convention of Democrats who are going to be aware that they need to appeal to voters outside their base. And we see Harris and Walz campaigning in that way. And I think we can expect to see a convention that is focused on celebration, on helping people feel good about these candidates and good about their country. So I think it's going to have a very different mood than the Republican convention did.
How impactful is the DNC for voters? Are they actually watching? Does it impact their vote? What do you think about that?
Well, it does impact their vote sometimes. So, for example, in 2012, President Obama was running about even with Mitt Romney, his Republican the candidate who was running against him. And he had a very strong convention, and it was topped off really by former President Clinton's speech on Obama's behalf, which is a brilliant speech. And parenthetically, I'd say, watch that speech that President Clinton is giving on Wednesday night. And it really helped carry Obama. His lead after the convention rose to a comfortable margin, and he went on to a comfortable victory. So these conventions can create a kind of mood for the candidate that can carry them into November.
And we're hearing that, Hillary Clinton is expected to speak, as well as former President Barack Obama. How important is it to have those Democratic powerhouses speaking on their behalf and really explaining why they think this is the candidate we need for our next president?
It can really fire up the party and also win over swing voters, especially someone like former President Obama. He's extremely popular, and not just with Democrats. He's really the most popular politician, major politician in the country. And again, former President Clinton is also still very popular. So to have them step out, give great speeches, which I would expect from both of them, and really endorse Vice President Harris strongly could be high moments in the convention and really help make a difference.
But then we're also hearing that, our current president, Biden, will be speaking as well. Do you think that will help or hurt the cause?
I don't think it will help or hurt. He's speaking tomorrow, as I understand it, and there's going to be a great deal of goodwill for him. Here's a guy who did a really very good job as president and then voluntarily stepped aside. Now, he took a little bit longer than many Democrats would have liked to do it, but he ended up doing it. And by doing so, he joins the ranks of the likes of George Washington and Nelson Mandela, these great leaders who actually stepped aside when they still could have run and won again. And I think the combination of the excellent job he's done as president and stepping aside, acknowledging that Vice President Harris would have a better shot at the presidency, creates a lot of goodwill for President Biden. He'll be off the stage, though, after tomorrow, and the rest will be about Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and the other heavyweights in the party.
A lot to look forward to this week, a lot to watch for the DNC. Thank you so much for joining us. That's Steve Fish from UC Berkeley's Political Science Department. Thanks so much.
My pleasure, Sarah.